Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Resya Marchelina, and thank you for having a look at this thesis defense presentation. So this thesis is about an analysis of pre-service teachers' practices of using TPAC in ELT at internship school program. For the overview, so the whole agenda of of this presentation we'll be discussing about the introduction, literature review, methodology, finding and discussion, as well as conclusion and suggestion. So for without further ado, the first chapter that I'll be discussing will be about the introduction. So for the introduction, we'll start with the background of the research. What makes me want to study this research? For the first I guess it was about like in the middle of 2020. So we already know that there's a COVID-19 pandemic, the outbreak that made a lot of changes, especially in terms of educational system, like from the conventional learning to online learning, in which students need to undergo online learning, as well as teachers need to teach in the online teaching and learning situation. So these issues kind of related to the internship school program, in which we focus here on the pre-service teachers or students of faculty of teacher training and education who wants to practice their teaching in the actual school environment or the actual field of school. So the internship school program, in which usually being carried out through the conventional pace, which means they had to observe like directly in school and meet the students, meet the teachers. So since the online learning regulation have been applied, uh, the situation kind of a bit changing, in which the internship school program, it's not only the school situation but also internship school program, in which the faculty or institution or university students who want to practice, which is it's part of their how do I call that, like it's mandatory for them in order to graduate. So this internship school program, they have to go through online learning and teaching process, in which kind of different with what they have been taught before in their previous semester, probably because they've only been taught about how to use technology, for example, in not online teaching but in conventional teaching. So this idea of in these issues, the online learning during the COVID-19 outbreak emergencies, impacting the internship school program, in which students need to be aware of some technological tools that can be used, or adjusting things that might be important in creating effective learning for their teaching practice. That's why in this case I would like to based on these two situations, I want to I did had a study. So I focused on the TPEC practices because I want to see how they implement technological in teaching, technology in teaching, and subject matter, in which PCK, how they integrated technology in the whole process of teaching and learning. And for the next one, based on the uh, background of the research, in the research question I formulated two questions. The first one is, what are ELT pre-service teachers' experiences in applying TPEC at the partner school? And the second one is, what the potential issues do emerge during the implementation of TPEC at the partner school? So to conclude, the objective of this research is to describe the ELT pre-service teachers' experience in implementing TPEC during their teaching practicum, or PLP, and to identify potential issues that emerged during the implementation of TPEC. So I had set a limitation for this research in which it's only focus on analyzing how pre-service teachers apply technology in teaching English, covered on TPEC and practice. So I used this framework called TPEC and practice by J. Paul Jamani and Fick in 2015. And the next one is the research participants are limited into students who have completed the internship school program in the academic year 2020 and 2021, in which they have experienced online teaching. Since that year, in that academic year, the regulation had started to being applied, be applied. So the next one is the participant have to be placed into had to be placed into partner schools or junior high schools that is located in Jambi City, and use educational technological tools during distance learning or online learning, teaching learning situation that they had been done. So for the significance of the research, theoretically, I hope that this research would be provide information regarding TPEC implementation, and as well as the issues of implementing technology in teaching and learning process. And practically, it's for students, teachers, or researchers as, I don't know, probably reference for them to improve or even deal with TPEC issues that might emerge, or probably just don't want to improve their teaching performance. For the next one is definition of key terms. So I took TPEC, TPK, TCK, and TPEC in practice. So the main highlight of this research is TPEC in practice, because I want to see how the ELT pre-service teacher teaching practices in using TPEC. So that's why I choose this framework from J. Paul and Jamani, which will be mentioned in review of related literature. So I had created a review of related literature in chapter 2. The first one is TPEC. So I referred to Miss Ryan Quehler in 2009, and TPEC in Practice by Japal and Jamani and Fick. So what makes it different, TPEC and TPEC in Practice, is that the TPEC in Practice focus more on the implementation or in the actual school environment, while TPEC is mostly just a framework which also focus on the implementation, but they didn't totally focus on the intersection of technology in each part, since they have 7 components in TPEC. But in TPEC in Practice, Jaipal, Jamani, and Vic proposed 3 main intersection. The first one is TPEC, the second one is TCK, and the third one is TPK, in which TPEC is technology in pedagogical and subject technology integration in pedagogical and subject matter knowledge, and TPK is technological and pedagogical, or how technology integrated in teaching. And the last one is TCK in practice. So TCK is how technology and subject matter compromise each other and support each other, in which it might create something efficient, like how the subject matter, or in this case is English, is being integrated with technological in terms of its application, for example, like lesson study and stuff. And the next one, we also have ELT, or English language teaching, which focus on 4 skills: listening, reading skills, writing skills, and speaking skills. So for the previous study, I took 2 previous study. First one is from Ringo Toma, entitled in 2021, entitled Pre-Service Teachers' Perception and Vision about TPEC and its Implementation. And the second one is from Jarati Rakerda Sulistyawati Nurkamto and Ilmi in 2021, entitled The Adoption of TPEC and 21st Century Learning by English Pre-Service Teachers in a COVID-19 Teaching Practicum. So what makes my study similar and has dissimilarities with these 2 previous study that I took. So the first one is that for Ringo Toma, they took only a TPEC framework in the, in regard of their main or fundamental research in his research, while in Jarati Rakerda Sulistiawati Nurkamto and Ilmi, they took they how to like how call it? So they mix the TPEC framework and 21st century learning to create a new framework. So it's the framework that they use is TPEC and 21st century learning. Meanwhile, I use TPEC in practice framework by Jepal, Jamini, and Fig. And the next one is research method. So I use qualitative method with a case study approach, in which I wish to study someone who have experience in implementing TPEC and having truly undergone the process of implementing and integrating technology in teaching and learning process. As for the subject of the research, I got it from so they were selected through purposive sampling, and 6 ELT pre-surface teachers were selected. So these 6 participants, we can say 6 participants were selected through some parameters that I formulated. So the first one, they have to be English education study program students, and they have to completed the internship school program in 2020-2021 and undergone online teaching and learning process, and they have to use technological tools in their teaching practice. For the next one, the instrument of the research, I formulated 11 questions, refers to TPEC and practice components conducted through in-depth interview. So I use in-depth interview with 11 questions of TPEC and practice. So in TPEC and practice, as well as it highlighted 3 intersection component, TPEC, TCK, and TPK. So the 11 questions we're going around through this TPEC in practice. For example, how do they apply TPEC and how do they deal with the issues and such question I asked the participant. For the next one is the procedure of data collection and procedure of data analysis. So for collecting the data, I chose the participant that fit the parameters or characteristic of this study. After that, I distributed the consent form, and I set time and place. I have the interview individually with each participants, and I recorded it. And after that, we did the analysis, in which I collected and transcribed the recorded file from the interview. And after that, I classified the data into themes and codes of TPEC in practice components, which also refers to the research question or the objective of the study. And the third one, for data analysis, I interpreted the data and described it in implementing and developing TPEC. The participant experience in implementing and developing TPEC. And the next one is I shared the transcription to the participant and had another discussion to validate their trustworthiness. And the last one, I draw the conclusion of the data based on the subject of the study. So to obtain the trustworthiness of this study, I conducted member checking with the participant and under the supervisors, with the supervisor to check the accuracy, or whether there will be something that need to be reduced or add, or probably feedback from the participants regarding the transcribed data that I had made. So for the next one is finding and discussion. In finding, I actually had divided the findings into two sections to answer each research questions. So the first one, the first section will answer the first question, which is the implementation process or the application of TPEC in the ELT pre-service teachers practice. And the second one is dealing with TPEC issue and its development. For the first one, TPEC implementation of ELT and pre-service teachers, I divided into three sections: TPEC, TCK, and TPK, since it make kid a little bit easier to know whether they have undergone the TPEC, the three main intersection of TPEC and practice thoroughly or not. So for the TPEC in practice, I only highlighted one for each codes in this presentation. For example, TPEC in practice, implementation of TPEC. As you can see in the presentation, it's one participant expressed that they implemented TPEC by utilizing some websites and application supporting support online teaching. And some applications that they use were Google Form, Google Classroom, Zoom, YouTube, and WhatsApp. So all participants expressed that they have implemented TPEC or technology in teaching and learning process throughout their internship school program. So the second one is the teaching preparation. We look at again, but the participant mentioned that they look at the material in syllabus and textbooks. Then they look at the video content on YouTube that is appropriate and suitable for the material and students. So all the participants mentioned that they had in preparing the teaching, so they refer it to the syllabus and textbook. So although the syllabus and textbooks have been provided by the schools, in which it's it's a document important for planning the teaching process. So they were given the syllabus and textbooks, in which they before they did that, they also have observation phase, like 1 or 2 weeks before the teaching practice. So they got it from the syllabus and textbook. And also some participants also mentioned that they have discussion with their supervisor in school partner. And some also mentioned that they have they referred the teaching preparation based on the student situation. So they first look at how the students have condition to prepare the teaching effectively. So for this case, for the teaching preparation, they use technology, but it's more like they only use it for matching the content or the topic to the textbook or syllabus before they really went into teaching. The next one is technology enhanced activity. So the participant expressed that they use variation of technology enhanced activity. For example, they use quizzes, Quizlet, or Kahoot, and Zoom, Google Classroom, and etc. So this application technological tools actually support them in having teaching online. So this part of this process where they utilize technology and to create a teaching activity, they try to they express that they try to have more interaction with the students. For example, they have discussion through WhatsApp. They also use WhatsApp for teaching. So in this case, I can say that they utilize application or technological tools in teaching very well. although I see that it's not really varied. Next one, TCK in practice. So we got two: topic selection and technology roles in developing learning materials. For topic selection, since it's technology and subject matter, they mentioned that they try to find relevant topics for the student and adjusting it from the supervisor and topic in the textbook as well as in the syllabus. So to select the topic, they didn't have they claimed that they didn't really have a choice to choose which one they are going to teach in their teaching. So they only follow the syllabus, and to find the relevant topics they use variation resources. For example, they got it from YouTube, American English. One participant also mentioned that they got the relevant topic from American English, and also then they try to make their own topic by having what do you call that, PowerPoint, and give it to the students. For technology roles in developing learning materials, so can say that they have adjusted it from teachers to be able to, so this one mentioned that they adjusted it from teachers to be able to adopt the topic that is available in the textbook. They also adopted, so the process of developing learning material, they have adopted and adapted the learning materials that were provided in the textbook or syllabus to the one that is in internet sources, for example, like YouTube and etc. So they also develop the learning material not only, so after the participant mentioned that after they got the learning material, they try to make the learning material, or they try to deliver the learning material into a simpler way so that students can understand more the material that they're delivering. So for TPEC in practice, I highlighted two. For first one is the first one is online learning strategies. So actually the participant expressed that they have variation of online learning strategies that they applied in their teaching. For example, this first one here mentioned that they use GTM, or grammar translated method, in which they explain things in English and then explain it again in Indonesia so that students will understand. So this GTM method was done through Zoom application, while the others mentioned that they have discussion in WhatsApp. Well, this one is also happening in WhatsApp. So the other mentioned that they have discussion in WhatsApp, and like to get the students' attention. So for the assessment, most participants expressed that they have given the authority to assess the student, in which it might help them to improve their TPEC or their knowledge of teaching and pedagogical in this case. But there were two participants that show that they were not given the authority to assess. So they only had given a task to deliver the material. So it's only start from the administrating phase, like making lesson plan and such process, until delivering the material. So it stopped there, and it didn't continue to assess the students. So I can say that this participant didn't thoroughly undergone the TPK in practice, since TPK in practice is actually, since assessment especially is so important in as a way to evaluate their teaching performance. The next one, okay, for TPEC issue and its development. So there are actually many issues that were found after I have the interview with the participants. For example, this one, it was the participant mentioned that the problem with the application and website, there was not any problem. However, when he wants to introduce one application entitled namely hot potatoes, to give crossword exercise, they found an issue that the application didn't work. So the students have to capture it and send it and fill the crossword in the through photo editor and send it to the teachers. So this kind of thing actually emerged, this issue of TPEC implementation. The participant mentioned that the issue mostly comes from the students. However, some issues also, one issues actually from the participant, in which he introduced the application. However, the application is considered too high for the student's level or student level and understanding of technology. So the main issues, as well as mentioned by most participants, they mentioned that the main issue here is from students' familiarity with the application. So that's why they only use applications such as they use application that is common and being used from their previous teachers in that school. So for developing the TPEC, they have evaluation, pre and post evaluation. One mentioned that they have pre and post evaluation, like peer evaluation, supervisor. However, another students mentioned that they had to develop their TPEC. They mentioned that they tried to create more fun activity through by utilizing technology in their teaching practice. So as for the conclusion, in this case I come up to two conclusions. The first one is that to answer the first question, so ELT pre-service teachers in the academic year 2020 and 2021 have well implemented TPEC during their internship school practice. So however, they did not thoroughly undergo the three main TPEC in practice components, in which they unable to experience more proven application of TPEC in the teaching and learning process. In this case, it refers to the TPEC in process, in which they didn't thoroughly deal with the assessment, which is an important part in developing their TPEC knowledge. However, the ELT pre-service teachers' competence and knowledge of TPEC are considered in a good criteria, in which they know how to deal with the issues that come up during the implementation of TPEC. So another one is the potential issue. So the issue mostly comes from the students. It's pretty obvious because the students were 7th grade students. So the main issue here is the familiarity to the application that they introduce, as well as students' availability to the technology, in which smartphone, the students have a hard time in having smartphone during their teaching, their learning timetable. So the ELT pre-service teachers need to carefully adjust the technology to the student situation. So that's why after they introduced one, they didn't use it anymore. They mentioned that they tried to use the one that is way more accessible and suitable for students' situation, based on the situation. And for the suggestion, I come up with two as well. For the first one, is to the English study program to provide English study program students in-depth enrichment of TPEC and appropriate technology integration for students or English learners at every stage of English proficiency. Since the English study program provide ICT and TEL, but those are only like available in terms of general English learners. So this one, since the ELT pre-service teachers or the students of English study program had mostly they teach the 7th grade or 8th grade students in junior high school. So by using some technological tools that have been introduced in the previous in the courses provided by English education study program, it will be a bit how do I call it? It will be a little bit hard for them to adjust the application, since they got enough knowledge of how to use technology in teaching and learning process, but the technology that they know mostly how do I call that? It's not really accessible, and it's pretty hard to access. So that the students and both student and teachers kind of hard to implement the technological application into the teaching. So the next one is to the next ELT pre-service teachers to understand the situation in the school comprehensively, so that they can apply TPEC more appropriate to the school situation and student situation as well, in order to achieve effective teaching. So they also need to create alternatives in every teaching model that you want to implement, because the issues might come up and they would have to deal with that in a very good manner. So aside of having a set rule or set teaching model, they have to have another alternative for their teaching, so that the students can achieve the learning effectively. I think that's all for my thesis defense presentation. That's all the agenda of today. Thank you so much for paying attention to the presentation. I sincerely want to say thank you for everyone who support me throughout this journey. That's all I can say. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.